Well, I opened my mouth and nothing came out. I mean, nothing came out. Um, After a few moments, one of the kids snickered, and then another one snickered, and I felt my face going red, and my body just numb all over. And I was really embarrassed, but mostly I was fearful. Just absolutely fearful. It had all started about 15 minutes before when I had signed up for this play in the 7th grade, and I was one of the leads. And it was the first or second day of practice, and I was reading some lines, and I just absolutely flubbed them. And the kids just really laughed, and normally I would have handled that fairly well, but for some reason I was embarrassed and just traumatized. Well, it's called communication apprehension. And it turns out it's one of the greatest fears in society. I think 1 out of 5 people are afraid to speak in public. Of course, mine was much greater than that. Not just fear, but paralyzing fear. And so after that traumatic experience, I just decided to get out of the play. And I think I did that by being such a behavior problem that poor Mr. Murray finally just canceled the play. I could talk to my friends okay when we were just out there, but couldn't do that. Well, so I finally told my mom, and so she sent me to Dr. Nestor, and he took a little instrument and looked down my throat and pronounced me fine. And it wasn't long after that my parents realized that it was psychological, not physical, so they sent me to some psychological doctors. I visited both a Freudian and a behaviorist. The Freudian showed me pictures of ink blots and wanted me to tell him what I saw. I was a junior high boy. Was he kidding? I'm not going to talk to him. And then the behaviorist had me record my words on a machine and listen. He wanted me to know how well I did. The problem with that is I already knew I could talk well when nobody else was listening, so that didn't help. Okay, so fast forward 5 years. It's the summer before my senior year of high school. Life had become pretty miserable. I had just isolated myself from a lot of things because of my fear of speaking. I had hoped to be a doctor or a lawyer, and I had long since forgot that. I was hoping for a coal miner in West Virginia. That summer, I got a job at a Christian youth camp. And for the first time, realized that God loved me and had a plan for my life, and that I was a sinner and I needed Him. And so I prayed that summer to receive Jesus as my Savior. Still had problems with speaking. I'm sure I stuttered and stammered through that prayer, but I got it done. And God began to change my life. Okay, so now it's 3 years later, and I'm going to church here at First Methodist Canyon, and the preacher asked me if I would like to be the youth director. And that sounds cool. I like telling kids about Christ, and that's what I've been doing in camping. Charlotte and I had just become married, and I asked her, and she said, great, let's do it. So we did. About halfway through the semester, I'm meeting with my leadership team, and they decide that we need to have a youth rally. And they said, well, let's start with some music. Let's have our little group perform. And it wasn't really a praise band, but it's kind of close. They'll perform. And then let's have some testimonies. And we had some great testimonies in the group. And then they said, of course, we'll need somebody who can share the gospel and give opportunity for people to make decisions. And I said, hey, great, let's do that. Who will we get? And they said, you. And I said, no. Guys, I do okay with small groups here, but I don't do big groups. And they said, that's okay. God will give you the words, like you're always telling us. So when your youth group starts quoting you to you, you're in trouble. So the night comes for the youth rally. I had a great turnout, and I'm out in my car just trying to figure out what in the world I'm going to do. scared to death. Open my Bible to 2 Corinthians chapter 12. And I'm reading Paul, where he talks about his thorn in the flesh, and he's praying that God might take it away. He says he prays 3 times that God will take it away. We don't know what the thorn was, maybe a sickness, I don't know. But finally, God says to him, my grace is sufficient for you, for strength is made perfect in weakness. So I go back in. I have no feelings of confidence. I'm not thinking this prayer is going to be answered at all. I'm just going. Knees are still knocking. The musical group does a really good job. The testimonies are powerful. It comes my time, and I get up and open my mouth. And the words come. And I just tell them who Jesus is and what he did for me. Doesn't last long. I get through and have them bow their head and ask if anyone wants to ask Jesus in their hearts. And hands go up. Bunch of hands go up. That's been nearly 50 years ago. Since then, I've had a number of careers, and every one of them has called on me to speak publicly a lot. And those around me will tell me that they think that that's my greatest gift, speaking to others. And I know different. It's his gift. And sometimes he does his best work in weak vessels like me.